And before I get started, I really want to show you the killer himself, the one that is responsible for 3 homicides in Manatee County last night. His name is Javvante Bryce. He is 28 years of age. He is the one that went on a killing spree last night in Manatee County.
My sadness grows as my trust fades away in the midnight dust, wanting to slit and slice their throats and drive them to the Atlantic Ocean on a speedboat and watch them sink until they meet the slaves who built this ruined but still existing world. Because life was temporary anyway.
He walked into that hotel room, looked at the mother and said, "I'm sorry." She asked, "What did you do?" And he shoots her 3 times in front of the boyfriend and these 2 innocent young juveniles.
Now I need y'all to sit down for this one because this story right here make sense. How you got 12 babies running around, you posting deep thoughts on Facebook like you Tupac or something, and then you go and do the unthinkable to your own mama. This is the story of a man who couldn't live with his truth. And when that truth started catching up to him, he decided 3 women had to pay the ultimate price.
But truth is, I cannot accept love because I am a broken man. I'm more broken than a total car without the help of a tow truck.
Those are his own words, y'all. And Chili, if that don't sound like somebody who needed help, I don't know what does. But instead of getting that help, instead of facing whatever demons he was wrestling with, Javvante Bryce chose violence. And on June 25th, 2024, in Bradenton, Florida, 3 women who loved him, his own mama, his cousin, and his ex-girlfriend, paid for his cowardice with their lives. This episode contains mature themes, including topics of obsession, betrayal, and violent acts, which some viewers may find distressing. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. They say there's a calm before every storm, but let me tell you something. Ain't nothing calm about a grown man with 12 kids posting poetry about being broken while his family running from him. On that Tuesday evening in June, that storm finally hit, and when the dust settled, the whole community was left asking the same question we asking today. What makes a son look his own mother in the eye and pull that trigger? Welcome to Unheard Cries TV. I'm your host, bringing you the stories that need to be told, the voices that need to be heard. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell because we about to take you through a case that'll have you checking on your loved ones twice. So let me tell you about Javvante Bryce, 28 years old, born January 15th, 1995, right here in Florida. Now on paper, this man looked like he had potential. His mama, Tidamisha Scott, she was only 48 years old. She raised him in Tampa. The boy was athletic, played football, ran track at King Senior High. After graduation, he went up north to Minnesota State University, then transferred to Savannah State University, where he kept running track. People who knew him back then said he was outgoing, fun to be around, always posting motivational quotes and sharing laughs. But here's where the story gets messy, and I mean real messy. By 21, this man had already started having kids, and y'all, I'm not talking about 1 or 2, we talking about 12 children. Now, some of y'all in the comments been saying that right there should have been the first red flag, and honestly, y'all ain't wrong. But let me paint you the picture of how he was moving. On social media, he'd post pictures with his babies, calling them his prince and princess, looking like the proud daddy. But behind all them smiles and cute pictures, something else was going on. This man was writing poetry, y'all, and not the good kind. Listen to this.
I remember waking up just to drown in my own sorrow. I remember waking up just to pretend a beautiful smile. I remember trying to plant my pain in the ground. Of course I failed. I remember looking in the mirror and drawing up a graveyard with my heart as the tombstone. I remember my tears flared from my eyes and created a pool of my against memories. So many against memories to where the water had no rhythm of movement. It was worse than a lake of fire. I remember praying that this trauma I'm witnessing never follows me when I walk this prodigious world. I remember praying that this trauma doesn't turn me into an evil human. I remember trying to slit my wrist without a blade, I remember trying to blow my brains out and throw that bullet inside of a chamber. I remember standing outside during that hurricane shirtless. I remember swimming in the middle of the ocean without a life vest. I'm still here living. I'm still here living. No, I'm not suicidal. I'm just suicidal of what I've been through.
Chilla, what? Make it make sense. You got 12 kids depending on you, and you out here talking about swimming in the ocean without a life vest. That's not poetry, baby. That's a cry for help. But it gets worse.
I remember searching for love, but I came across neglect and hate. I remember confessing my love to a woman I once saved, and she stabbed me with the same utensil I paid for us. I remember family and friends laughing at me because I told the truth, how I'm trapped inside a maze and how broken I am of a man, but I'm still struggling for success.
Now look, we all been hurt in relationships. We all had that one person who did us dirty. But this man right here was carrying something heavier than heartbreak. People close to him started noticing he wasn't right upstairs. His family said he'd been put on medication for mental health issues. He'd been arrested for domestic violence, and that right there should tell you everything you need to know about how he treated the women in his life. But here's the thing that really got people talking, and I need y'all to understand this because it's important to the story. Folks who knew Javvante been whispering for years that he might be living a double life. Some said he was on the down low, you know what I'm talking about, having all these babies with women, but secretly dealing with men on the side. Now, I can't say that for certain because the man is dead and can't speak for himself. But what I can tell you is that people who knew him said he seemed to be hiding something. And if you're scared of your truth coming out, if you living in fear that somebody might expose you, that kind of pressure, that'll drive a person to do desperate things. By early 2024, things at home got so bad that his own mama had to move out. Tidamisha Scott took her two youngest daughters and her boyfriend and went to stay at a Motel 6. Think about that for a minute. A 48-year-old woman working trying to raise her kids, and she got to leave her own house because her grown son, the one she raised, the one she loved, had become too dangerous to live with. Moving on to what really should have been the final warning sign. In the months leading up to June 25th, Javvante's social media posts got darker, way darker. He was posting videos with his daughters saying things like, I may be broken, but I'll never break your hearts. I love you so much. But hey, at the same time, he's posting about being trapped in a maze, about being too broken for love, about how society was laughing at him. The man was literally telling the world he was falling apart. But instead of getting help, instead of reaching out to professionals, he kept spiraling. And here's what really gets me. In one of his posts, he said,
I asked the Lord to remold me, rebuild me, reaccept me. But the Lord told me he had to have a conversation with the devil before approval.
y'all, when somebody start talking about God needing to check with the devil about their life, that's not spiritual. That's mental illness talking. That's somebody who done lost touch with reality and is looking for somebody, anybody, to blame for the mess they made of their own life. So what? Society was laughing at him. He said it himself.
Society laughed at me. Society joked about me. So when I walk this earth, I'm laughed at. Laughed at from the deaf, from the blind, from the weak and the broken.
But see, here's the thing Javvante never understood. Nobody was laughing at him because of who he was. If people were laughing, it's because of how he was moving. 12 kids, multiple baby mamas posting pseudo-deep poetry on Facebook while not taking care of his responsibilities, being violent with women, refusing to stay on his medication. That's not society's fault, baby. That's your choices coming back to haunt you. Now let me tell you how this all started falling apart. June 25th, 2024, that Tuesday started off like any other day, but by the time the sun went down, 3 families would be destroyed forever. Around 9 o'clock that evening, the Manatee County Sheriff's Office got a call from the Palomino Trace Apartments in Palmetto. Somebody reported a man threatening a resident with a gun, but by the time police rolled up, Javvante was already gone. Here's what went down, and this is where you can see his mind was already made up about what he was going to do. He walked straight into that apartment where his sister lived. Now, his sister had one of his baby mamas there with her, one of them 12 women who had his kids. When Javvante walked in and saw this woman, he looked her dead in the eye and said, I have to kill you. Just like that, no argument, no fight, just walked in talking about killing somebody, but somehow, And I'm talking about divine intervention here. His sister was able to talk him down. She convinced him not to pull that trigger. He left without shooting her. But y'all, this is where it gets real. That wasn't Javvante changing his mind about violence. That was just him deciding she wasn't first on his list. Because exactly 17 minutes later, he showed up at that Motel 6 in East Bradenton where his mama was staying. At 9:17 that night, Javvante Bryce walked into room 142 at the Motel 6. Inside was his 48-year-old mother, Tidamisha Scott, her boyfriend, and her two youngest daughters, Javante's little sisters. Now picture this scene, y'all. His mama probably heard the door open, probably turned around expecting maybe to have a conversation with her son. Maybe she was hoping he'd come to apologize for whatever had been going on that made her have to leave her own house. But that's not what happened. He walked into that hotel room, looked at the mother and said, "I'm sorry." His mama, confused, asked him, "What did you do?" And before she could get an answer, before she could understand what was happening, he raised that gun and fired 3 shots. 3 times he shot the woman who gave him life, who raised him, who loved him, even when he was too dangerous to live with. And he did it right in front of her boyfriend and those 2 little girls. Can you imagine those babies watching their big brother kill their mama? The trauma, the horror, the way that image is going to stay with them for the rest of their lives. Tidamisha Scott never stood a chance. She died right there in that motel room. But here's the part that really shows you how far gone this man was. Immediately after shooting his own mother, I'm talking within minutes, this man got on Facebook and posted one word, love, with a heart emoji. Let me tell you something. You got to be sick in the head to kill your mama and then hop on social media talking about love. That's not grief. That's not remorse. That's somebody who completely lost touch with reality. But y'all, he wasn't done. Not even close. About 13 minutes later, around 9:30, he pulled up to the 900 block of 26th Street East in Palmetto. This time, his target was 29-year-old Sequoia Stargaze Bryce, his blood cousin. Now, I need y'all to understand something about Sequoia. People been saying she might have been more than just his cousin, if you know what I mean. Word on the street was they had some kind of relationship that went beyond family. Sequoia was outside her apartment, just finished hanging out at a little cookout, getting ready to drive home. Normal Tuesday night, probably thinking about work the next day, maybe about her 2 kids. Then Javvante showed up. She's starting to get into her vehicle to leave, and that's when he walked up and shot her. Just like that. Didn't say nothing, didn't explain nothing. Shot his own blood and then hopped back in his car like it was nothing. They rushed Sequoia to the hospital, but she didn't make it. About an hour after the shooting, she died. Left behind 2 babies who now got no mama and no daddy because their father had already passed away. And again, like clockwork, this man got back on Facebook. This time he posted, "I love you, Sequoia, but you had to go. I'm sorry. Had to go." What you mean she had to go? This was his family, his flesh and blood. But according to people who knew them, Sequoia might have been threatening to expose whatever secret life Javvante was living. Some folks said she knew about his down-low activities and was tired of keeping quiet about it. But so what? Even if that's true, even if she was going to tell the world his business, you don't solve that problem with a bullet. You grown, you handle your business like a grown man. But Javvante, he chose cowardice over courage every single time. The night wasn't over. About 34 minutes after Sequoia got shot, around 10:04, dispatchers got another frantic call, this time from the 4800 block of 51st Street East in Bradenton. Inside that house was 31-year-old Cheryl Carter, another one of his ex-girlfriends. People who knew her called her Pig, that was her nickname. She lived there with a new partner and was known around the neighborhood as somebody who really loved her kids. By the time officers got there, Cheryl was dead on her own doorstep, shot down trying to get in her house, trying to get to safety. And just like with the others, Javvante posted on Facebook right after Pig, "I love you, but you had to go." 3 crime scenes, 3 dead women, all connected to one man who couldn't handle whatever truth he was running from. The whole community went into panic mode. The Manatee County Sheriff's Office knew they had a spree killer on their hands, and from what family members were telling them, he wasn't finished. People who knew Javvante warned police that he was probably heading to Georgia, where another ex-girlfriend lived. They thought she might be next on his list. Law enforcement moved fast. They put out what's called a BOLO, be on the lookout, statewide alert. Every police department in Florida got Javvante's description, his car information, everything they needed to spot him. But here's the thing about investigations like this. When you got a man killing people he knows, the detectives don't have to wonder about motive. They just got to figure out where he's going next and stop him before he gets there. The crime scenes told the story. This wasn't random. This wasn't somebody robbing people or targeting strangers. Every single victim was a woman who had some kind of relationship with Javvante, his mama who put him out the house, his cousin who maybe knew his secrets, his ex-girlfriend who had moved on with somebody else. Investigators started piecing together his social media posts, his history of domestic violence, the Baker Act holds where he'd been involuntarily committed for mental health evaluation. They found out he'd been on a risk protection order that took his guns away at one point, but that order had expired. Here's what really gets me about this investigation. All the warning signs were there. The domestic violence arrests, the mental health holds, the erratic social media posts, family members scared enough to move into a motel. But the system, whether it's legal or mental health or social services, didn't have the tools or the authority to stop what was coming. The detectives knew they were racing against time, with 3 women dead in less than an hour, and intel saying he was heading toward another potential victim in Georgia. Every minute counted. They coordinated with law enforcement across state lines, hoping to catch him before he could hurt anybody else. Meanwhile, the community was trying to make sense of what had happened. 3 separate crime scenes, all within a few miles of each other. Families getting phone calls no parent should ever receive. Children losing their mothers in the most violent way possible. The evidence was straightforward. Ballistics, witness statements from the people who survived, social media posts time-stamped right after each murder. But the question everybody was asking wasn't about evidence. It was about why. What drives a man to look his own mama in the eye and pull that trigger? What kind of secrets was he keeping that were worth killing for? At about 1:30 in the morning, nearly 4.5 hours after this nightmare started, Hamilton County Sheriff's deputies spotted Javvante's car at an Exxon gas station in Jasper, right near the Florida-Georgia border. They'd found him, but now they had to stop him. So there Javvante was at 1:30 in the morning at that Exxon gas station off exit 451 on I-75 in Jasper. Hamilton County deputies had been tracking him, following his car, waiting for the right moment to make their move. But when they tried to approach him, this man made his final choice. He got out of his car and started shooting at them. Let me tell you something. When you shooting at police officers, you already decided how your story gonna end. These deputies, they got families to go home to. They got no choice but to protect themselves. They fired back and killed him right there in that parking lot. No deputies got hurt, thank God. But there was a woman in the car with Javvante that whole time. The Hamilton County Sheriff's Office said she wasn't hurt and wasn't facing any charges. Makes you wonder what she saw that night, what she knew about where he'd been and what he'd done. But here's the thing about this case. There wasn't going to be no long trial, no months of court proceedings where lawyers argue about his mental state or his childhood trauma. Javvante Bryce made sure of that when he decided to shoot it out with the police. He chose his own judge and jury that night at that gas station. Some people might say he took the coward's way out. After killing 3 innocent women, after destroying multiple families, he didn't even have the courage to face what he'd done in a courtroom. He couldn't even give those families the chance to look him in the eye and ask him why. Now let's talk about what this man left behind, because that's what really matters. 3 women are dead. Tidamisha Scott, 48 years old, a mother trying to raise her kids right. Cheryl Carter, 31, known in her neighborhood as somebody who loved her children. Sequoia Stargaze Bryce, 29, with 2 babies who now don't have either parent. But the damage goes deeper than that. Those 2 little girls who watched their brother kill their mama, how do you come back from that? How do you ever feel safe again when the person who was supposed to protect you is the same person who took everything away? And let's talk about those 12 children Javvante left behind. 12 kids who now got to grow up knowing their daddy was a killer. Some of them old enough to understand what happened. Some of them too young right now, but they gonna have questions later. Questions about why daddy did what he did. Questions about whether they got that same darkness in them. The Manatee County Sheriff Rick Wells talked about supporting the grieving families and trying to understand what led up to these shootings. But honestly, what's to understand? This was a man who couldn't handle his own truth, couldn't take responsibility for his own choices, and when the pressure got too much, he decided other people had to pay for his problems. People been asking if we're doing enough as a society to help folks with mental illness before they reach a breaking point. And look, that's a fair question. Mental health resources in this country, especially in Black communities, need work. But let's be real about something. Javvante had resources. He'd been Baker acted, he had medication, he had family members trying to help him. The problem wasn't that help wasn't available. The problem was he refused to take it. He refused to stay on his medication. He refused to take accountability for his violence against women. He refused to deal with whatever shame he felt about his sexuality, if that was even the real issue. So what do we do when somebody's hiding something they think is unforgivable? We create spaces where people can live their truth without fear. But we also got to be clear, being afraid of judgment ain't never an excuse for violence. Being scared of what people might think about who you sleep with don't give you the right to kill your own mama. Some folks in the comments been talking about how Javvante might have been sexually abused as a child, how maybe his mama knew about it and didn't protect him. And you know what? That could be true. Childhood trauma can mess you up in ways that last a lifetime. But even if that's what happened, even if he went through hell as a kid, that still don't excuse what he did as a grown man. We all got trauma. We all got things that happened to us that we didn't deserve. But most of us don't go around killing people because of it. Most of us find ways to heal, to get help, to break the cycle instead of continuing it. The real tragedy here is that this didn't have to happen. If Javvante had faced his demons instead of running from them, if he'd stayed on his medication, if he'd accepted that being gay or bisexual or whatever he was isn't something to be ashamed of, 3 women would still be alive today. But he chose fear over courage. He chose violence over vulnerability. He chose to take lives instead of taking responsibility. And now we got children growing up without their mothers. We got grandparents who lost their daughters. We got a community that's traumatized and families that are destroyed. Mental health concerns don't always show up the way we expect, but in Javvante's case, there were red flags everywhere. The domestic violence, the erratic social media posts, the family members so scared they had to move out. People saw the warning signs. The question is whether we got systems in place to actually do something about it before it's too late. If you know somebody who's showing signs like this, threatening violence, posting disturbing content online, refusing to take their medication, being violent with their partners, speak up. It might feel uncomfortable, but it could save lives. Don't wait for somebody else to handle it. Don't assume they'll get better on their own. And if you're somebody who's struggling with your own truth, whether it's about your sexuality or your past or whatever shame you're carrying around, get help. There are people who will accept you as you are. There are therapists and counselors and support groups. There's medication that works if you take it. There are ways to heal that don't involve hurting other people. But most importantly, understand this. Your pain, no matter how deep it is, don't give you the right to cause pain to others. Your trauma, no matter how real it is, don't excuse you traumatizing other people. Your shame about who you are don't justify taking away somebody else's right to exist. Javvante Bryce had choices every step of the way. He chose violence. He chose selfishness. He chose to make his problems everybody else's problems. And in the end, he chose to go out like a coward instead of facing what he'd done. 3 women lost their lives because one man couldn't handle living his truth. That's the real story here. That's what we need to remember. If you made it this far, I want you to think about the people in your life who might be struggling. Check on your family members. Pay attention to the warning signs. And if something feels wrong, don't ignore it. Rest in peace to Tidamisha Scott, Cheryl Carter, and Sequoia Stargaze Bryce. My heart goes out to every child, every parent, every family member dealing with the aftermath of this tragedy. Y'all deserved better. Y'all deserve to see another day. This has been another episode of Unheard Cries TV, where we tell the stories that need to be heard. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share this with somebody who needs to hear it. And remember, love yourself enough to get help when you need it, but never love yourself so much that you think other people deserve to die for your problems. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. And remember, the truth might hurt, but lies can kill.